Okay, hello. So now I'm going to show you how to get started with the exercises and basically how to solve some of the common problems that I see many of you have on Discord and Piazza. So you first go to the course webpage. So you can use the link up here, and I already opened a version of the webpage that you'll see tomorrow, so you can see that on my version I already have exercise 3, but that's of course going to be available to you. The second thing you need to do is that you need to update the exercises. So Morten Hannemose is right now working on a script that will do this automatically for you, and he'll upload some instructions that will tell you in details how to get tomorrow's exercises. So hopefully that process is going to be very smooth and not as problematic and chaotic as it was last time. Okay, so in order to then open Visual Studio Code, what you basically do, what you can do, is that you can right click on the folder where you have your files, and then you can select Open, and then there should be a Visual Studio Code option. So these options that you see here and the way it's laid out is probably going to be different on your computers, and that's because I'm using Linux. But you should still be able to right click or command click if you're using Mac OS and open Visual Studio Code like this. So that's what I'm going to do. And then it opens up, and I can see that I already have a file open. I'm just going to close that to not confuse you, and then I'm going to collapse this. Because the next thing I want to say is something about what you should see when you start Visual Studio Code the right place. You should basically see this 02002 students folder here on top, and then you should see the files laid out like this. This is the right way it should look. If it doesn't look like that, you probably opened, we'll do that later, you probably opened the wrong folder. So the way you can fix that from Visual Studio Code is you can go into Files, Open Folder, and then you can navigate and select this folder here and open it anew. I'm just going to do it, but it's not going to have an effect because I already have the right folder open. Okay, let me try to open a Python file. And this is actually an important step. So I'm just going to open one of the Python files you probably saw last week. So here's one. Because notice when I opened it, it wrote something here in the bottom. What it's writing here in the bottom is what version of Python that it think I have installed. This turned out to be the root of nearly all the support problems that we have. People have the wrong version have multiple versions of Python installed. Very often it's none of their own doing. So what happens on many computers is that Python comes bundled with other software or games or something else, and then you end up with multiple versions of Python. And especially on Mac OS, this was a big problem, but it was also a problem on Microsoft. So in my case, I can see what version of Python I have by doing mouse over. So this is version 3.11. Everything higher than 3.8 is good. So Python 3.8 to 3.11 is good. Python 3.7 or lower is not good. If you have one of these versions, you need to go in and install a new version of Python. They don't work simply, unfortunate. Anyway, in this case, the version is good, and I can see that it's located, sorry, that was not what I wanted to do. I can see that it's located in this path /bin/Python. So this tells me where on the computer the Python program is physically located. That's going to be different on your computer. On Mac OS, it's probably going to be called Python 3 because it's a Mac OS quirk. On Windows, it's going to be something like C:/program files/Python blah blah blah, something like that. But you can anyway, this will identify what version you have. Okay, so then let's try to open the terminal. So I do terminal, new terminal, and then this one jumps up. And then I make sure I'm in the terminal thing here, and I can see where on the computer I am. And now I'm kind of regretting I increased the font size as much as I did, because this is going to look a little bit ugly. But this is the terminal. So let me just try to do an install of the core software. So this is actually not going to work on this computer, but I'm just going to show it just for all time's sake. So I get an error in this case. It tells me you're not allowed to do that. Other of you will install it and it'll look like it's installing correctly, but as I said, you can have multiple versions of Python and now it's installed in the wrong location, and it can be very frustrating and very hard for you to fix because you feel you're doing the right thing, you're writing the right command, and it's just not working. Okay, how do you fix that? It's actually pretty easy to fix. You press it and that will give you like some options for selecting alternative versions of Python. And on Mac OS and Windows, you can probably find the right version here. Like just select different versions and try this command again until it works. That's basically the answer. Another tip on Windows, go to Add, Remove Programs, see if you have two versions of Python, remove the one not from the Microsoft Store, restart VS Code, you should be good. That is basically the advice on Windows. On Mac OS, keep trying new versions of Python. This Linux computer is a little bit special because it's a new version of Linux. So the one version of Python that I actually want to use is not listed here. So I'm just going to show you the most troublesome way of doing it, and that is by specifying the location of Python manually. So in this case, I can simply browse and just find it. And I think I have a version lying somewhere here. And this is just something that I happen to know because I know that I installed a version of Python in this particular folder. So now what I'm looking at is something called Python. And I'm not very good at looking. So this one, Python, the Python program, select. And now you can see that it updated. So now I'm happy. We got the right version of Python and everything should be good for today. Then of course what I need to do is that I need to run the install command again. So I'm just going to do that. And what I did here is that I pressed the up key, and the up key allows me to cycle through old commands that I typed in. So up key and enter. And that did not work. And that's because the terminal needs to be restarted. Isn't that great? So let me just close it and then press terminal, new terminal. And now it has updated. So you can see this kind of stuff is complicated even for me, because installing software is always the worst part of learning how to program, and it's just very unfortunate that we need to do it in order to get started. Anyway, now what I can do is that I can run the command that I was supposed to run. So I just run this pip install command from the web page, like this, enter, and then it downloads a lot of stuff. It checks that everything is the right version, and it's going to take a second. So you can see here in the output that it said DTU Math Tools, so we're installing the stuff you need for DTU Math, and then eventually it should do something like this. And the big important thing here for you to be aware of is that it doesn't print out something that looks like an error of sorts or anything like that. It should basically look like what we have here. If it prints out an error, something is up. Maybe you need to try to select different versions of Python and repeat it until it works, or you should probably contact a TA or write us on Discord or Piazza or somewhere like that. Okay. So I think that's everything I'll say about how to set up and get started with Python, and then we'll start looking at the exercises and how to solve them. So thanks for your attention.